Hello, I'm Dr. Kenneth Goldberg, and I'm the author of The Homework Trap: How to Save the Sanity of Parents, Students, and Teachers. On June 1st, I gave an interview to a writer who was doing a piece for greatschools.org, and the piece came out the other day. And I didn't realize it at the time that I was giving this interview. I was just sharing my own model. But in reading her article, it appears that she implemented one of the fundamental concepts of my model and reported some very striking results with the 3 weeks between the interview and the end of her child's school year. It's extremely dramatic, and it does match what I've seen in a couple of other cases. So I encourage everyone to read that article. It's an excellent article, but I would also like to provide here a very brief explanation of what's happening and why the simple steps that I am recommending can actually work. The writer is describing an all too familiar situation that I discuss in my book. Now, please excuse this amateurish video, but I'm basically taking pictures off my PowerPoint screen to explain the point. She describes a lifelong problem with homework with her son. And what happens is it starts in elementary school where you have one teacher and you have the child. And the teacher's trying to get the child to do the homework, and the homework's not getting done. And as you'll see in this picture, the child looks reasonably happy. And you're being brought into a position where you're being asked to leverage the child to do the homework. You're sort of like the fulcrum of a seesaw. Now what happens is when you reach the upper elementary school levels, and I'm from New Jersey where generally, at least in the school districts my kids have been in, there are two major teachers by the upper elementary school. Well, what happens is the child isn't doing the work. If anything, you're getting pressed down, as now you have the demands of two teachers and other people at the school. The child may start acting out, the disciplinarian gets involved, maybe the nurse gets involved because people decide medication will help. By middle school, the child has an extremely difficult situation to deal with, which is a cast of characters that are trying to get that child to do the work. That cast of character now includes 4, maybe 5 teachers, all converging on the same space with homework assignments. The disciplinarian's involved, the principal may be involved, the guidance counselors are involved, maybe the child's study team gets involved. And as you see from this picture, the child is depicted as getting angry, and you is getting further crushed. But the one thing that doesn't happen is the homework doesn't get done. By high school, the numbers of people who get involved just keep magnifying, and you feel completely overwhelmed, and you've essentially lost the child to school and to education. That child is just completely turned off. I've thrown the athletic director into this picture, largely because if your child happens to be an athlete, what happens by the high school age is that that athletic eligibility kicks in. What previously your child was able to enjoy, perhaps town sports, are now all at the high school level, and the good peers your child, the friends your child had, the peers that you valued, the kids who were coming into the home, they're now getting separated because they go on and play sports and your child doesn't. And this is a real setup for your child to become involved with peer groups that you're less happy that your child's associating with. Well, a lot of this is due to what I call the myth of motivation. And I ask the question, is your child not doing the homework because he or she can't do the work, lacks the skill, or because she doesn't want to do the work, lacks the interest? Well, the default assumption is almost always that it's a matter of interest, and I call this the myth of motivation. The truth is that it's usually as much an issue of skill as it is one of interest, and even if there is some lack of interest, let's be honest, kids can be lazy, not everybody wants to do their work. But it's usually a lack of skill, and even if it's both, The solutions come through recognizing the lack of skill, not by harping on the lack of interest. And the typical learning problems that affect kids who have homework problems, and this is partly why it affects boys more than girls, are problems of working memory, which manifest in difficulties of attention, and problems in processing speed, which have to do with handwriting speed and sometimes reading as well. And here's the key. Time is the key issue. If you think about it, the school day is bound by the clock. If your child has some difficulties with the pace at which your child works, he's still going to school the same number of hours. Our kids tend to go 9 to 3. So they're in at the same time, they're out at the same time. If you're a worker, your workday is often bound by the clock. Federal law doesn't even allow you to work extra hours without getting at least time and a half pay, even if you work a little more slowly than the person who's working next to you. But the homework day is bound by the assignment. And because it's bound by the assignment, it becomes an endless task. Now, what ends up happening is in a normal situation, the school system has its own hierarchy, with students reporting to teachers, teachers to the principal, principal to the superintendent, and the superintendent to the Board of Education. And you have a parent-child relationship which goes on separate from the school relationship. While you want to have good relationships with each other, the parent is still the head of the home, whereas the school system is in charge of the education during the school day. When homework gets to be a problem, and we follow the sequence that was described in this article, and which is also shown through my drawings earlier of the seesaw with you getting crushed, what ends up happening is you as a parent end up taking a middle management role in the school system. You are actually operating as an agent for the teachers to get your child to do the work. This diminishes your roles and authority in the home and makes you an individual who has high levels of responsibility at home, but with little amounts of authority to define what your child really needs to do. And the solution is extremely simple. Time-bound homework, reduced penalties, and a clear statement that the parents are the ones in charge of their homes. Now, in the article and the three-week progress that's described in the article, what that parent did is the parent and the writer created time-bound assignments, as opposed to saying that the child had to work till it was done. The child just had to work for a limited amount of time. Now, the situation gets more complicated when you want the school to reduce the penalties and you want to assert the fact that in class, the teachers have the final say, but at home, parents have the final say. That gets more complicated, and it's an issue that I discuss in much more detail in my book, The Homework Trap. And I view my book not only as an explanation of what needs to be done, but also as a tool. It's really the book I wish I had in hand when my one homework trapped child was going to school, so that I could hand it and say, this is the truth, this is what needs to be done, not because I say it, but because some other person, in this case Dr. Goldberg, but I would have liked to have had Dr. Jones, while I was Dr. Goldberg, have his book so that I could hand it to the teachers and say, this is the simple solution, this is what I need. I hope this is helpful, and thank you for viewing this video.